Hello everyone, I'm Sister Beth Murphy. I'm the Communications Director for the Dominican Sisters of Springfield. And I'm very pleased to have with me today my friend Father Joe Molloy. Welcome, Father Joe.
Thank you, Sister.
Father Joe is a priest of the Diocese of Springfield, and he's just celebrated the 40th anniversary of his ordination. He's had the privilege, I would say, of working alongside our sisters in many places during those 40 years, in Eastern Illinois, in Decatur, Illinois, and now at St. Joseph the Worker Parish in Chatham, where he is currently the pastor and where our sister Judith File works alongside with him. So welcome, Father Joe.
Thank you very much, Sister Beth.
Would you tell us a little bit about your vocational journey to the priesthood?
Okay. During high school, I was involved in the parish. That would be St. Patrick's in Alton, which is now closed. And I was, again, liturgically, and I really enjoyed doing things at Mass or for Mass. And we had some deacons that would come over from St. Louis on the weekend, transitional deacons, and they influenced me, especially Father Tom Halinga. And he really influenced me. He was neat. He kind of talked our language, and so I thought about it. Long story short, I went to inquire at it was the seminary, now it's Villa Maria here in Springfield. And at that time, Monsignor Balke was the rector, and he said, do you want to be a priest? And I said, I don't know. I said, I'm already enrolled at St. Louis U. He goes, try that. And if the feeling is still there, try us a year and then decide. I did, and I stayed ever since I entered.
Here you
and
are.
So, I wanting to leave sometimes during those 7 years I was in the seminary, but I always felt that God was calling me. I had a wonderful spiritual director there, Father Bob Meyer, who is now in heaven, we pray, and he gave me a wonderful piece of advice. He said, you can leave the seminary if you want, but leave only if you think you're not being called to be a priest. Don't leave for you're mad at the guy down the hall or you're not doing good in studies. He says, only if you think God is not calling you. And that was great advice. And so I kept that, and it was the best advice, and I'm so glad that I said yes to the Lord. It's been a great 40 years. I've seen Jesus so many ways and times and places, through people, through experiences, and it's been just wonderful.
Thank you for saying that, because I think lots of people say, well, how can you make that kind of a commitment? And what you've just done is explained that just like any commitment, we have the challenges that arise.
Oh, most certainly.
And in any commitment, that advice that you received is so wonderful. Are you called here? And clearly, for 40 years, every morning when you've woken up, you've said yes, which is, that's what we each have to do. We have to recommit every day.
Exactly. And especially when things aren't the best, or you're having a little testing time or a little trial, you just think, okay, Lord, just help me through this, because I know that this is where you want me to be. And even like in Chatham, after I was 19 years in Holy Family in Decatur, and that's a long time, and then to come to a new place, but I said, this is where the Lord wants me now. I think this is where he wants me to minister.
And you've been doing that for a couple of years now, and
yeah, over 2 years.
My intelligence says doing very well.
Well, okay.
That's what I
thank
hear.
you, but
That's what I
I
hear.
hope so. It's a wonderful parish.
Yeah. Since this is National Vocation Awareness Week, let's talk a little bit about the distinction between a call to diocesan priesthood and a call to the priesthood attached to a religious order.
Okay.
Because they are a little bit different. So I don't know whether you went through any discernment. It sounds to me like you knew diocesan
Yes.
seminary was going to be where you go. But could you say a little bit about the difference between those
Sure.
two?
Sure. For me, I always wanted to be a diocesan priest. I am an only child, and so I am used to, in some aspects, of kind of being by myself and not living with anyone. The first time I ever shared a room with anybody was the year at St. Louis U. And so I'm kind of independent in that sense. And that's what I think the diocesan priesthood is. You're an independent priest, but you can still have, if you will, quote, some community with other priests, obviously. But there isn't that community aspect, obviously, as you would experience, or a religious order priest would experience. I didn't want to necessarily live in community with 3, 6, 8, 10 others. That's not really my experience. I didn't know if I wanted to follow a certain charism, from that Francis or Augustine or whoever. And I just thought for myself, I would like parish work. I loved to teach, but I didn't want to necessarily be a teacher at a university or something like that. I wanted to be in a parish. And so I said, I'm going to be a parish priest, so I'm going to join the diocese.
Yeah. And that makes sense, because that's where your call, you expressed, you first experienced your call was in your home parish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. And so, and religious orders, our priests obviously can be in a parish, but I just didn't want that type of, I guess, life like that, being with others in the sense of a community, and that, just for me. How did you discern a vocation?
How did I discern a vocation? I think God found me in spite of myself.
Okay.
But very different from you. I am not an only child. I am the 8th of 10 children.
Totally
so
foreign.
I was born in a community, and I had an older brother who was a Carmelite. My brother Tom is 9 years older than I am, and he joined the Carmelites right out of high school.
Wow, great.
So even though I did not think about that at the time I was discerning a call to the Dominican sisters, I realize now, looking back, how influential that really was for me. Because our house had always been the place where everybody wanted to be. And it was the same when Tom was in formation as a Carmelite. He was in school in Milwaukee, and a lot of his classmates were from very far away from the Midwest. So he would often bring them home to our house for holidays. We would have, in addition to the 10 of us and my grandfather, we would have 3 or 4 other guys with us often over the holidays. And I saw what that community meant to him. I got to experience it firsthand. So like I said, I never really thought about that much until I was reflecting back. It just seemed like the natural thing for me at that time. So I met the Springfield Dominicans when I was a student at Eastern Illinois University, and I got involved with a retreat program called Koinonia. And that's when I met my first Dominican sisters at Springfield. I still had no plan. Went all through college, started a career in textbook design and publishing in Chicago, and it was within that year that while I was actually working on a tech, which is a retreat for teenagers, that I began to sense that this was something that I could do for the rest of my life. But like you, my upbringing in the parish had an awful lot to do with that. We were very active. We had a wonderful youth group and wonderful mentors. The priests in our parish were most of them have gone to God now, but just very dear to my heart. They were wonderful guides and mentors. And there were laymen and women in the parish who also looked after us and showed us what a life dedicated to Christ could be. And so when I started to feel that maybe I was being called to religious life, I had all of those wonderful role models to look to. My own brother, the lay people and the priests in my parish, and frankly, even my parents,
Oh,
because
very much.
as a
Yes.
very dedicated married couple, raising 10 children, they both have to be saints already. So you don't need to worry about canonizing them, right? Um, I I followed their example. The center of our lives were our house and the parish, which was a 5-minute walk away. And that it just became a natural thing to choose.
Mhm. I agree there. I look at my parents, and uh, they were very involved in the parish. Always went to mass. I never thought about not going to mass. And so, yes, my parents, as yours, very influential in the call.
And the whole faith community. My
Hmm.
mom and dad, the whole faith community in our parish. And then that desire to do something meaningful and purposeful with my life.
Hmm.
And religious life is kind of an adventure.
Hmm.
Unlike a diocesan priest, and I'm not saying that you have not had adventures in your life, because I'm sure you have. But my mom used to joke with my older brother, join the Carmelites and see the world, because she never knew where Tom was going to be. He's here, he's there, he's everywhere. And that has also proved to be true for me. We
Hmm.
have a global access to global resources. The Dominican family is worldwide.
Hmm.
It includes priests, brothers, sisters, and monastic women, laity, and associates. So, and we've got people like that all over the world. So, for instance, I'm very close to our Dominican brothers and sisters in Iraq.
Mm.
And that is, and have made 4 trips there. And that is not anything I would ever have thought when I was a young kid growing up at St. Paul the Apostle in Joliet that would have ever happened.
Hmm.
Do you know?
Right.
So religious life is an adventure in commitment, and it's an adventure in community living, as you've pointed out. It's
Hmm.
very different than diocesan
Hmm.
priesthood in that regard. The biggest community I lived in was 13. That was my very first
Right.
mission in Jacksonville. And I have lived on my own when ministry has dictated that, but truthfully, it's not been always happy for me to live on my own. I'm really
Hmm.
meant to be in community.
Hmm.
And right now I live in a community with 2 other sisters.
Nice.
So what would you say to someone who was discerning a call to priesthood or religious life? The time period is so different than when you and I were
Oh,
making our
100%.
decisions.
Yes. I would say if a man of any age, doesn't necessarily have to be, it can be younger or older, or I would say just to, obviously, to pray, but just to be open to where the Lord wants you to go. And I kind of liken this to almost like reconciliation, confession. Sometimes I'll say to people, what does the Lord want you to do? Who does he want you to be? That's what you are called to do or be. Same thing here. And it's not only about necessarily what I want. That's where a career and a vocation to me differ so greatly. It's being open to the Lord choosing you to do his work in his name. Oh, maybe I don't. Where's the Lord? Yeah. And of course, there is a decision on your own, but you're not in it for yourself. It's not all about me. It's about the Lord and how anyone can be an instrument for him in his name. So, where do I want to go? Where do I think the Lord is calling me to go, to journey? How is he wanting me to live out my baptismal call in the best way possible? Be open to that and see where that takes you. And then discern through prayer the answer to that.
And be open to some adventure.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I mean, it's not always going to be the goods, and it's going to be, but it's like in a marriage. Anybody can get through the easy and good times. But, like say in a marriage, when it's rough, when there's obstacles, that's when the sacrament of marriage kicks in big time. Same thing here. You know, there's been days I wanted to say, I'm gone, I'm out of here. But going back to that, do I think the Lord still wants me? Yes. You know, yes, sometimes yes.
You're not done yet.
Not done yet.
Yeah.
That's true. So it's not always going to be cotton candy and skipping down the aisle. No vocation, no career is. But it's a great life. It really is.
It's meaningful and fruitful and rewarding.
Very much so.
One of my very favorite definitions of vocation comes from a Protestant theologian by the name of Frederick Buechner. Maybe you've heard this before. He said, and I'm probably paraphrasing, I don't think I have it exact, that your call or your vocation is that place where your great joy and the world's deep hunger meet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that says an awful lot. So if you can find your calling in the place where not only God needs you, but the world needs you, then you're going to have a very rewarding life.
Amen. I couldn't say it better.
Thanks for being with me today,
Well, thank
Father
you,
Joe.
sister. This is wonderful.